Well, the other thing is that the Minister has just said that the informal non-statutory process which he has put in place now in recognition of the fact that this legislation is not and never was going to be in operation this side of this summer. The process, though, does not involve, as I understand it, putting an advertisement in a newspaper saying that it's proposed to fill this vacancy and to invite people to apply for it. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe this committee is going to put ads in the newspapers, but I don't think it is. I think it's going to just look at the available members of those courts or whatever, and it's going to come up with a process which won't involve it putting newspaper advertisements and carrying out interviews of people. It'll come up with its own informal report within a matter of weeks. And that's precisely the way the system should work. But I'm warning you that if every ordinary position in the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal and the High Court has to be the subject of advertisement, interviews and the like, and if sitting members of the judiciary have to apply as well as non-sitting members, the perfectly reasonable approach that has been taken in relation to the presidencies of the Circuit Court and the District Court will not be possible to follow in the new arrangements for those positions of ordinary members of those courts. And again, I go back to a point which has been the subject of an attempt to amend this bill. You have consequential vacancies. The government decides to move somebody from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court, an ordinary member of that court. That creates a vacancy. If that decision is made and you have to then start advertising for the vacancy in the Court of Appeal and seeking applications, every consequential amendment is going to be hugely lengthy. And if it is a triple or a double linked chain where the government in the end decides to fill the position in the High Court, in the Court of Appeal with a High Court judge, one appointment to the Supreme Court may trigger a cascading series of obligations to start a new competition every time and receive new shortlists from this Commission. And that's incredibly clumsy. And it would all be avoided if the Minister would at least accept that when the people in, whenever it was, 1994, created the Judicial Appointments Advisory Board, they said we're not going to apply it to, in inverted commas, promotional appointments in the judiciary, because we don't have to have competitions to do that, and there's no need to do that. And the system works perfectly well, as this government is showing week after week in the appointments it's making. And this is all just a waste of time, and an expensive waste of time. But it's not just simply a waste of time and a quango. It's going to actually disimprove the quality of the judiciary, because it's going to deter people from making themselves available for promotion. And the interesting thing, and this is the very interesting characteristic of what I read in the Irish Times today, this new body, this new informal commission, according to the newspaper reports, and I believe them to be correct, is going to be charged with the actual task of going to seek out people for its promotion, tapping people on the shoulder and say, "Are you willing to become president of the court?" So I mean, it's a different approach, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. And I have no objection to the government having an advisory body which actually taps people on the shoulder and says, "You've made enough money now from your practice as a solicitor and a barrister. What about doing the state some service?" Instead of having this utterly different approach that there can't be any canvassing, there can't be any communication, there can't be any signalling in advance to a talented person, "You should apply." None of that will be permissible under the new system. It'll be quite the reverse. It'll be if you apply, you're not supposed to talk about it to anybody who's involved in the process, and you're supposed to simply apply on the blind, so to speak. I think that's going to make for a really bad disimprovement in our judiciary, that will no longer be the usual way to get high-quality people to accept service to the people in the form of judges. And I think that the philosophy of this bill is deeply misconceived in one respect, that from my knowledge of practitioners, solicitors and barristers, there are a number of them who have it as a lifelong ambition to become a judge. But there are quite, I think, a much larger number who understand that the life of a judge is an onerous one. It's socially isolating. It's less remunerative for many partners in large solicitors' firms and many senior counsel than their current mode of living. And for them, the idea, the notion, I think, that underlies Minister Ross's philosophy is that this is all gravy. This is the gravy train. This is jobs for the boys. This is handing out the sweets to your favourites. This is giving things out to people who may not deserve them.
You know about that.
And attracting and handing out baubles of political power to people who. This seems to be, well, certainly. I know the minister may not share that view, and I'm not suggesting it is, but it's certainly. If you look at the books that Senator Ross, or as he then was, wrote about cronyism and the like, if you read them, it's quite clear. It's quite clear.
Fairness, Senator Ross or Minister Ross,
but as he then was,
is not here and is not able to defend himself.
No, but I tell you, while I'm on the subject, the fact that he's not here did not deter him from spending the whole morning communicating with members of this House who he thought he might influence to vote guilty.
No, I think that's entirely speculative.
No, it's not. I've seen the emails. I've certainly seen the emails where Senator Ross contacted members of this House looking for their vote.
Norris, please.
Without foundation.
Yeah,
not without foundation. I've seen it.
Sorry, please. Colleagues, don't be making
didn't work anyway.
assumptions or comments that we haven't any basis or
But I mean,
there's plenty of basis.
It contrasts in a very favourable way from the Minister's point of view that he acknowledges he's a guest in this House. He's not sitting badgering individual members of this House to vote for guillotines or the like. He regards this House as master of its own fate. But I can assure you that strong pressure was brought to bear on many members of this House. And it wasn't from you, but it was from a government level.
Sorry, Senator.